Think about North Korea. What usually comes to mind? Famine, poverty, dictatorship. Definitely not the dream place to live, right? The thing is, our information about North Korea is like trying to solve a puzzle with missing pieces. We rely on scraps from Western media or the rare first-hand accounts from journalists who slip out of there. North Korea are actually locks down tight on what gets out, controlling what we see. It's like a massive propaganda game. But what if the Western media isn't painting the full picture? Remember that time they thought Kim Jong Un had kicked the bucket, only for him to pop up looking perfectly fine? Embarrassing, right? And in 2020, Al Jazeera pointed out how often the media messes up reporting on North Korea, showing they're kinda clueless about what's really going on there. So, what if North Korea actually be better than we're led to believe? Is it possible they're thriving, and we've just got the wrong end of the stick? And why does it seem like the whole world is against them? Let's rewind the clock and delve into history to figure out how this all began. Ages ago, the Korean peninsula was one united kingdom. No north, no south. Just Korea doing its thing without borders or separate identities. But then came the 20th century and entered Japan, swooping in to colonize the place. Fast forward to after World War II, when the world's power shifting and Japan defeat. Korea gets freed from Japan, but guess what? It gets split into two playgrounds, one under the Soviet Union's watchful eye, the other under the USA's wing. Peace was just a fleeting visitor because in 1950, boom, the Korean War burst onto the scene. It was brutal, messy, and left both sides battered and bruised. Finally, on July 27, 1953, they called it quits, but the price was high. They drew a line, carving out North Korea and South Korea as we know them today. North Korea, buddies with the Soviet Union and China, took a liking to the whole communism gig. And that, my friends, kick-started the North Korea we've come to hear about. Here's a little-known scoop about North Korea. They ditched the whole communism vibe after the Korean War. Instead, they whipped up their own special sauce called juche. It's like a turbocharged nationalism that screams self-reliance and independence. Think of it as North Korea's way of saying, we're doing things our own way. Their main man, Kim Il-sung, cooked up this juche concept to give North Korea its unique flavor, setting it apart from the Soviet Union and China. And guess what? It kinda worked. Juche became their thing, and it's had quite the impact. Surprisingly, juche played a big role in kickstarting North Korea's economy post-war. While South Korea was wrestling hard to get back on its feet, North Korea was hustling and bustling. They even reached a solid level of economic independence compared to other developing countries back then. But North Korea had a trick up its sleeve: natural wealth. They hit the jackpot in that department. Plus, back in the day, Japan had pumped a lot of infrastructure into North Korea during its colonial era, all thanks to that abundance of natural resources. So far, North Korea seemed to be riding the success train pretty smoothly, don't you think? As we mentioned earlier, North Korea's economic journey post-Korean War showcased remarkable strides, leveraging a centralized planning system focused on heavy industries that brought a rare level of self-sufficiency among developing nations. However, this triumph wasn't a steady climb. Instead, it hit a downward spiral starting in the 1990s. Various factors played into this slump. The Soviet Union's collapse was a crushing blow to North Korea, cutting off vital economic and political support. Trade, aid, and access to essential goods plummeted, sending the country into an economic tailspin. Add in the nuclear weapons program and human rights issues, and you've got a heap of economic sanctions from the UN and other nations. These restrictions severely limited North Korea's international trade and finance, stifling its growth. Then, there's their centralized planning system, which critics slam for its inflexibility and inefficiency. Misallocation of resources, wastage, and a lack of innovation only added to their economic woes. North Korea's self-reliance ideology kept it secluded, shutting out international trade, investment, and collaboration. That isolation deprived the country of new technologies and market opportunities, putting a lid on their economic potential. Natural disasters didn't lend a helping hand either. Floods, droughts, and typhoons wreaked havoc on infrastructure and agriculture, worsening the economic strain. And let's not forget their heavy reliance on industries like steel and coal. Great when the market's stable, but a nightmare when global prices fluctuate. Their substantial budget for military expenses, especially on the nuclear program, diverted funds away from development and worsened shortages. Corruption? Oh yeah, that's another huge hurdle. It siphoned off resources, further messing with the economy. Plus, the tight control over information and media in North Korea kept its citizens in the dark about global trends and best practices, hindering their skills and innovation. Not to mention the lack of clear property rights and market-based mechanisms stifled entrepreneurship and growth. So, while North Korea had a shining moment, sustaining it has been a roller coaster of internal hiccups, external pressures, and an unwavering commitment to self-sufficiency. And now, North Korea is considered one of the poorest countries in the world. But wait a minute, is North Korea truly as poor as they say? Are things really that bad over there? Let's circle back to what I mentioned earlier about how Western media tends to fumble the facts when it comes to North Korea. It often boils down to a lack of understanding about the country. Could it be that what we're hearing is just another serving of Western media propaganda, fueled by a dislike for North Korea simply because they're different? That's why you have to know this fact, based on various economic indicators. North Korea GDP per capita, a measure of average income, is extremely low, and its population suffers from widespread poverty and malnutrition. According to the World Bank, North Korea's GDP per capita in 2022 was estimated to be $1,140, ranking it 196th out of 202 countries. This means that the average North Korean earns just over $1,000 per year, which is well below the global average of $13,215. 13 times below average. Poverty is widespread in North Korea, with estimates suggesting that nearly half the population lives below the national poverty line. This means that they cannot afford to meet their basic needs for shelter, clothing, and even food. Malnutrition is also a serious problem in North Korea, particularly among children. According to UNICEF, 1 in 4 children under the age of 5 in North Korea are stunted, meaning they are too short for their age due to chronic malnutrition. North Koreans also have limited access to essential goods and services, such as electricity, clean water, and healthcare. This evidence suggests that North Korea is indeed a very poor country. The country's economic situation is dire, and its population suffers from widespread poverty and malnutrition. But could it get any worse? Yes. If you're a North Korean, you're stuck in a system that locks you in tight. Want to travel outside? Nope. That's a no-go without the government's say-so. Even exploring within the country needs permits. It's like living in a maze with locked doors everywhere you turn. And internet access? Forget about freely browsing the web. It's heavily censored, and only a lucky few get to peek into its digital world. Now, imagine not being able to voice your opinions. North Koreans are urged to zip it when it comes to speaking against the government. Step out of line, and you're looking at punishments that could be as severe as imprisonment or even execution. Scary stuff, right? All these strict rules mean North Korea's practically slammed shut any chance of boosting its economy or improving its people's lives. Limited information and movement squash any dreams of entrepreneurship. Unlike their South Korean counterparts who rose above adversity, it was their entrepreneurs who lent a helping hand. Curious? Check out the video. We've got the full story there. Furthermore, without public criticism, the government runs unchecked. Hello, corruption and misguided policies. But the thing is, North Koreans are just like us. They live, breathe, love, and adapt to their limitations. Kudos to their resilience. I can't help but wonder, how long can North Korea keep this up? Their ideology and conditions, it's a wild card. Anyone up for becoming a North Korean citizen? Not me, that's for sure. Catch you in the next video.